Okay, we all have them, right? Daily routines. Love them or hate them, they're kind of what make us, well, us.
Totally. And today, we're taking a deep dive into how daily routines can actually help people learn English.
Using this super cool script for a language learning podcast called English Your Way.
And what's really neat is this podcast doesn't just focus on, the dry stuff.
Yeah, it's not your typical grammar and vocabulary drill.
It's got games, cultural insights. They even encourage listeners to actually record themselves speaking.
I gotta admit, when I first saw the topic, I thought, daily routines, really?
Yes.
But then I started reading this script, and
Yeah.
they had me cracking up right from the beginning. Like, their whole bit about morning people versus night owls.
Yeah.
So relatable.
And that's the genius of it, right? They hook you with humor so you almost forget you're learning.
Exactly. They even use this funny phrase, drag myself out of bed. Like, we've all been there, right? Stumbling around in the morning, half asleep.
And by highlighting these everyday phrases, they're showing how we can use vivid language to describe even the most mundane things.
It's like they're giving you permission to be playful with the language,
Yeah,
even if you're not totally fluent yet.
exactly. And then they take that playfulness to a whole new level with this game they do, all about the morning routine.
Oh, yeah, the one where they give you a bunch of actions, brush your teeth, get dressed, take a
You
shower.
gotta put them in order. It's simple, but it really makes you think.
Totally. It's like a fun little brain workout, but for English.
And it subtly reinforces those essential verbs and the sequence of actions, which is so important for any language learner.
It's way more engaging than just memorizing a list of words, that's for sure.
And speaking of engaging, their Cultural Corner segment is pretty awesome. It's where they go beyond just basic vocabulary and talk about how daily routines differ around the world.
Ooh, yeah, like the whole thing about siestas in Spain.
Exactly. And it's not just presented as some quirky cultural fact. They dig deeper.
Yeah, they talk about how it reflects a different perspective on work-life balance and the importance of rest.
It really makes you realize that even something as simple as a daily routine can be a window into a whole other culture.
And that's what I love about this podcast. It's not just about learning English, it's about understanding people and cultures.
And as we move into the afternoon with English Your Way, they start talking about things like work, lunch breaks, all those activities that fill up our day.
And it's so smooth how they do it. They don't explicitly announce, okay, now it's time for the afternoon routine.
Yeah, it just flows naturally, like a real conversation.
Which is a key part of their teaching style, I think.
Absolutely. They've got this great banter going, lots of humor, clear explanations, real-life examples.
It feels like you're just hanging out with friends, chatting about life.
And along the way, you happen to be learning English. They even have this repeat after us segment, which might sound basic, but it's so effective.
Totally. You're actually practicing your pronunciation, getting used to the rhythm of the language.
And it's not just for beginners either. Even advanced learners can benefit from fine-tuning their pronunciation,
And then, of course, there's the challenge at the end of the episode.
where they encourage listeners to step outside their comfort zone.
Yeah, they actually ask you to record yourself describing your own daily routine using all the new vocabulary you've learned.
It's a bold move, but so powerful. It's about taking ownership of your learning and putting those skills to use.
And to make it less scary, they even offered to feature some of those recordings in a future episode.
So it's not just a challenge, it's an opportunity, a chance to connect with other learners, share your story, and maybe even hear yourself on the podcast.
That's really cool. It creates this sense of community, which I think is so important for language learners.
Absolutely. It's like they're building a virtual classroom where everyone's encouraged to support each other.
So we've seen how English Your Way tackles morning and afternoon routines. But what really gets me is how much depth they bring to something that seems so ordinary.
Yeah, it's not just about learning a bunch of words. They're really getting at the heart of what makes each person's day unique.
And I think that's just scratching the surface. There's so much more to uncover about their teaching techniques and the impact they have on learners.
Oh, definitely. We've just begun our deep dive, and it's really cool how English Your Way takes the time to break down idioms and expressions.
Like they don't just assume you know what a night owl is, right?
Exactly. They'll weave it into a story or a joke, so you're not just learning the definition, you're actually seeing how it's used in real life.
I bet they'd even make a joke about how early birds can learn English too.
Oh, totally. They're always so encouraging and positive.
Yeah.
And they're always checking in with the listener, too.
Yeah, it's not like a one-way lecture or anything.
No, they're constantly asking things like, does that make sense? Or can you think of another example?
It feels like they're having a conversation with you right in your living room.
And speaking of real conversations, they're not afraid to share their own personal experiences.
Oh yeah, they throw in little anecdotes and jokes about themselves. Makes them seem more relatable.
Like they're saying, hey, we're not perfect either. We make mistakes, we have funny stories, we're learning right alongside you.
It definitely makes the whole language learning thing feel less intimidating.
Like, it's okay to laugh at yourself and not take it all so seriously.
And laughter's a good thing,
Yeah,
right? I mean, it helps you learn. It makes things more fun.
definitely. And beyond the humor, they use some really creative techniques to bring the language to life, even though it's just audio.
Oh yeah, like they're really good at using imagery and sound.
Right. You can almost picture the scenes they're describing in your head, like you're watching a movie.
And sometimes they'll even throw in some sound effects or music.
It really makes you feel like you're immersed in the experience. It's not just about hearing the language, it's about feeling it.
And they're big on active participation, too.
Yeah.
Like they're always encouraging you to repeat phrases and practice your pronunciation.
Because they know that language is not just about passively listening, it's about actually using it. And that brings us back to their end of episode challenge.
Oh, yes, the challenge.
Right.
The part where they really push you to put those new skills into practice.
And it can be a bit scary, to be honest. Recording yourself speaking in another language, it takes guts.
But they make it seem less daunting somehow, like it's this exciting opportunity to share your voice with the world.
And the fact that they might even play a recording on the podcast, that's pretty cool.
Definitely motivating. It's like they're creating a platform for their listeners to shine.
And that sense of community, that shared journey of language learning, it's incredibly powerful.
It's like they've created this amazing online space where everyone's learning and supporting each other, which is awesome. It's been amazing to see how much thought and care they've put into making this podcast so immersive and supportive.
Yeah. But beyond all the techniques and challenges, what really strikes me is their genuine passion for language and culture.
You can just hear it in their voices, can't you?
Absolutely. It's like they're not just teaching English, they're celebrating it.
And they inspire their listeners to fall in love with the language, too.
Like they're saying, don't just learn it, embrace it, enjoy it.
As we've been talking, I've been thinking about my own daily routine. Like, it's something I do every day without really thinking about it.
It's easy to take those everyday things for granted, isn't it?
Yeah. But English Your Way has kind of made me realize that even those mundane tasks can be seen in a whole new light.
That's the power of language learning, right? It helps you see the world with fresh eyes.
And speaking of seeing things in a new way, I got to give them props for not shying away from the harder parts of learning English.
Oh yeah, like pronunciation. That can be a real struggle for some people.
But they handle it so well, with a lot of sensitivity and encouragement.
Like they're saying, we know it's tough, but we're here to help you through it. You got this.
And that kind of support is so important,
Yeah.
especially when you're feeling discouraged.
It gives you the confidence to keep going, even when you make mistakes.
This English Your Way podcast really shows how powerful collaborative learning can be. It's not just about one person teaching and another person learning. It's about everyone learning together.
Exactly. It's like a shared adventure full of laughter and support and those aha moments.
This deep dive has been so insightful. We've learned about the importance of creative teaching methods, cultural understanding, and how powerful it can be when language learning becomes a communal experience.
But before we wrap up our exploration of English Your Way, I think it's really important to talk about the bigger picture here.
What do you mean?
Well, it's easy to get caught up in the technical aspects of language learning, grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, but we can't forget about the human element.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's about how language connects us to each other and to the world around us.
Exactly. Language learning is about more than just acquiring skills. It's about expanding your horizons, building empathy, and creating bridges between cultures.
And that's what English Your Way does so beautifully. It shows how language can be a tool for connection, communication, and experiencing the world in a deeper, more meaningful way.
It's about empowering people to share their stories and have real conversations, even if they come from different cultures and speak different languages.
I love that. What a powerful message.
But before we officially sign off, I want to leave our listeners with a question to think about. Something inspired by the English Your Way challenge. Imagine you're recording yourself, describing your daily routine. What words would you use? What would make it interesting?
That's a tough one. Makes you think outside the box.
Right. It's about finding those unique details, those little things that make your routine special.
Okay, so instead of just saying, I wake up, maybe I'd say something like, my alarm clock blasts this annoying song that sounds like a dying cat. And that's how I start my day.
Ah, I love it. See? So much more interesting than just wake up.
Right. Or instead of I eat breakfast, I could say I inhale my breakfast in like 5 minutes flat because I'm always running late.
Perfect. It tells a story, It gives you a glimpse into that person's life.
It's about using those little details to paint a picture for the listener.
Exactly. And don't forget about the senses. What do you smell? What do you feel? What do you see?
Oh, I see. So like the smell of freshly brewed coffee is what finally gets me out of bed. Or my morning commute is a symphony of honking horns and screeching brakes.
Yes. Those sensory details make it so much more vivid.
You can even use metaphors and similes, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like, my to-do list is a monster that never stops growing. Or, I navigate rush hour traffic like a pro.
Those are good. I'm totally going to steal those.
Go for it. The more creative, the better.
And thinking back to that English Your Way podcast, it's not just about finding the right words. It's also about having the confidence to use them.
That's so important. Putting yourself out there, especially in another language, can be scary.
Yeah.
But it's so rewarding.
Yeah, it's like you're opening yourself up to new connections and experiences.
Exactly. And who knows? Maybe your story will inspire someone else to start their own language learning journey.
This whole deep dive has really changed the way I think about language learning. It's not just about memorizing rules and vocabulary. It's about connecting with people and exploring different cultures.
I couldn't agree more. It's about finding your voice and using it to share your experiences with the world.
And that's something we should all strive for, whether we're learning a new language or just trying to communicate better in our everyday lives. So to all our listeners out there, don't be afraid to experiment with language. Have fun with it. Find those words that make your story unique and share them with the world.
Because you never know who you might inspire. Until next time, keep diving deep